Mr. Dana lede mindenkinek,
Mr. Danaról beszélünk, szakállas mint Kratos. Nevetése messze száll, mindenkihez elhatol. Fortnite-hoz gurítja, streamelésnél csúcs. Pókember szívében a hősök közt lépkedünk, fut. Bejönnek a skinek, inventory full. Győzelmi tánc, a chatben mindenki cool. A játék közben szabadul az adrenalint. Mr. Dana vezet, nincs ellenfél, ki lenyomja, mint kilinc. Szakállas harcos, Kratoshoz hasonló. Vidámságával a csetet feldobó. Streamelés királya, Fortnite vezér. Mr. Dana neve mindenkinek egy példaérték. Pókemberes pózban, websling és bounce. Villámként pattog a falakon out. Mindig új stratégiák, újabb trükk. A stream közönsége mindent imád, nincs szünet, csak följebb lépünk. Számítógép előtt nem csak egy gamer, egy közösség vezére, inspirációs fényter. Fortnite, történetek minden szárnyal. Mr. Dana hangja, a chaten nincs párja. Szakállas harcos, Kratoshoz hasonló. Vidámságával a csetet feldobó. Streamelés királya, Fortnite vezér. Mr. Dana neve mindenkinek egy példaérték.
Na hello, jó reggelt! Mint ugye tegnap mondottam, folytatjuk az Avengers-t. Remélhetőleg el is mentette az álláspontot, mert amúgy tényleg semmi... Ugye elkezdtem, hogy volt annó save game gomb, de lehet, hogy tévedek. Nem tudom, hogy az utolsó patch-el mit változtattak, mit nem. No. Igen, és... Közös lesz választani a nehézséget? Maradunk normálon. Egyértelmű, nem szivatjuk magunkat. Jó reggel, Dave! És szépen meg vagyok, te hogy vagy, hogy aludtál? Mi lenne az oké, hogy az ott úgy oké. Finding Tony. A villogós lenne? Az is villog. Azt hiszem a helicarrierre kell mennünk. Azon vagyunk. Ez lesz All Stark Manor. Szerintem az kell legyen. Jól aludtál? Mit csesztél el? Mi történik?
Check out the fancy drawbridge.
Typical. Subtle Tony. After you.
Elfelejtettem, mit akartam. Elnézést. Ennek a falnak, ami itt van, a másik mapról, ennek nem kéne itt legyen. Zseniális. Na mondjuk, sztori közben emlékszem, annól nem találkoztam bugokkal. Multiba ott előfordult, de itt így nem, tehát hogy itt a map elemek kerültek ide máshonnan.
Whoa! I wonder if Mr. Stark would let me drive one of these.
Igen, ennyi. Pedig arra gondoltam, úgy megyünk tovább. Use the war table to start next. Bebagolt. Újra bebagolt. Azt hiszem, hogy még a Hellin vagyunk. Ez zseniális. Hát, ha így jó lesz neki. Utolsó checkpointot betöltöm. Fie, Bruce elindult, bár még mindig nem jó a map.
I can't believe we're about to knock on Tony Stark's door.
Me neither. Looks like the controls are on the other side. You think you can find a way over there? I mean, I could break through those rocks, but the green guy isn't the best at talking things out.
Made it! Whoa! I wonder if Mr. Stark would let me drive one of these.
Igen.
See why you like this.
No, that's me. Like smashing things, not.
Why not? It's kind of fun. So, what's the best part of being the Hulk? You gotta like something.
We should really focus on the drawbacks.
What are you gonna do? Stand around?
Úgy. Van skill pointom. Egy.
Silence the whole time?
Yeah, great idea.
Suit yourself. More rocks?
Aha. Tetszik amúgy, hogy nem látom hova kell menjek, mert textúrák vannak mindenhol. És ezen át csak kellett volna tudni jöjjek, mert az ott már nincs benne szak. Annól az nem volt ilyen bugos. Esküszöm. És nem tudom, itt erre mehetek, vagy... Okay.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I can see Golden Acres. Kinda.
Great. So, can you jump over and lower the bridge?
Sure thing. You can make that
Ja,
jump.
lent van a híd.
Just a little farther this time.
Bugfest.
Still waiting on that bridge? Come
Oké, sok és egyébként szépen benéztél. Hello.
It's stuck on something.
on. Oh, is it jammed?
Hang on, I think I got it.
Tehát itt amúgy nem is kellene tudni átjöjjek alapjáraton. Zseniális. Meg itt van valami, ami nincs ott.
Ta-da! I hereby grant you passage to Sir Stark's fancy castle.
Oké.
Okay, calm down. Nice job. Sounds
Most
like
szabadna csak bejönni ide, és most lehet erre
Isn't that one
jönni
of his
tovább.
top 5 songs to kick butt to?
Hát ez kicsit kiábrándító.
Hello, Golden Acres!
Mármint, hogy a bug. tényleg most bakháltam.
This can't be it.
Let's get this over with.
Az mi volt?
So Tony Stark, the Tony Stark lives here?
Here's so. Tony?
Jó, ezt... menjünk vissza a Quinjetbe. Ezt mondta, hogy be lehet tölteni, úgyhogy ne legyen széttörve. Mert ezt így nem vagyok hajlandó, szörnyű. Nem tudom, miért jön.
So Tony Stark, the Tony Stark
most
lives
jó.
here?
Helyreállt.
Here's so. Tony? Hey, Bruce. Long night? Ooh, long 5 years. At least it's quiet. It was.
Hey, back off!
Hi, I'm sorry. Who are you?
Kamala?
Well, Kamala, your Emeraldite friend here is kind of on my shit list. Okay.
Nyugodt maradt.
Yeah, you're
Nice.
damn right you deserved it. Do the Avengers pose a danger to society? That was the question, Bruce. That was the question.
Did you even check the science? Did you check
It was a
the
heist,
science?
Bruce.
No.
We were outsmarted.
The Terrigen reactor was unstable, and you knew that. You knew that, and you still paraded it before the entire world.
So what? We just give up?
We didn't give up, Tony. We failed. At least I can admit that. No, we failed him. We failed him.
Kapiról van szó.
Tony, I don't know how long you're gonna be mad at me, and to be honest with you, I don't really care. Take as long as you want. But the kid is inhuman. We did this. And she needs your help. I can't.
You can't what? You're ditching me?
Oh, hey, don't take it personally, kid. No, this is what he does, isn't it? And why don't you take a good look around, huh? I can barely help myself.
This was a mistake.
Now we agree on something.
Fasz.
So you're both just gonna walk away? The Avengers were set up. Cap was murdered.
You think I don't know that? Huh? I've replayed that day in my head 1,000 times. The Avengers take the fall despite saving the day, and that bastard Charlton walks away smelling like a rose. And guess what? Guess what? No one cares. No one cares. The world needed someone to blame, and he gave them their scapegoat. So, unless you have some kind of astounding proof, I suggest you both get off my land. What is that?
Proof.
Bizonyíték. Egy van.
This better be good. Kind of buried the lead, you know. Could have told me about that earlier. No. No sitting on my couch. You're still on the list.
Fasza.
Where did you get this?
Guessed your password on some resistance blog?
Impressive.
Dude, your password was I am Iron Man.
Really? Huh. Thought I changed that. Son of a...
I know, it's incomplete. There's a whole folder on AIM's server.
No, there's more here.
What?
Yeah, look, it's smart. They encrypted it to look like a corrupt file.
Igen, sérült a
In a few
fájl.
hours, I'll get all the rest.
Ó! Pár óra alatt megmenti a többi részét.
What is this? Who is Tiny Dancer?
Oh no. We gotta get out of here.
What? You know this shameless Elton John fan?
They helped me get out of Jersey. I wouldn't be here if they hadn't warned me about AIM.
Really? Tiny Dancer.
Look, we really should go. Now.
I would have gone with Rocket Man. Okay. I got to get dressed.
Jön a
You
szerkó.
have a suit?
Yeah. Maybe, sort of. We'll see. Excuse me while I
Nice.
slip into something less comfortable.
Te lávi kórész.
Oh, that's where I left my boots. Ah, of course, Bruce tries to saddle me with a stray fangirl. After all these years, he still can't own up to his own responsibilities. No, son of a...
Ám itt vannak az aim-tól.
Well, looks like Tiny Dancer was telling the truth.
Akasztjuk. De ez a régi. Oké. Banner HK változott.
Guess they found you, Bruce. Oh, great Nana's flying machine. Still a thing of beauty. Can't say the same about her. Let's get airborne.
Hát igen, ez a kezdetleges.
More party crashers. Oh, hey, fellas. It's gotta be around here somewhere.
Ah, sisák.
Good thing I don't have neighbors. I'd be so pissed off right now.
You always love to make an entrance, Stark. How did I do?
I'll give you a 7 out of 10. Good to see you, Georgie boy. You been working out? Still any other billion-dollar companies lately?
Just yours.
Hey, you're gonna pay for that window, Tarleton.
This is your new place? I expected more mirrors.
I got rid of everything that didn't spark joy. Guess
What's
what
up?
pile you're in?
Turn the girl over, Stark.
And that will get you off my lawn.
Mr. Stark.
I'm joking, kid. Just stay near the nice green man. Time for the big gun!
The girl needs our help.
Well, you know, she seems fine to me.
Inhumans are sick. They need treatment.
Ah, do people actually buy that crap?
Nice.
How's Tarleton controlling these machines?
I don't know. He got powers after the accident. I saw him controlling a robotic spider thing once.
Oh, he's leveled up with spiders. Nice move,
wait.
kiddo. Yeah. Paula? Squad 50.
You have looked down on me from the moment we met. Let me introduce you to what I like to call technokinesis.
Catchy. Rolls right off the tongue.
We got air trouble.
close to the Hulk. Or as close as he'll let you.
No, I got this. Watch.
Jaj, jaj, jaj.
You're not ready for... Or maybe you are.
Frankly, I'm surprised to see you and Banner together again.
Well, Brucey and I are seeing something about our issue. She's great. Short, stretchy, really good at guessing passwords.
Picit hangos lenne nekem, lehet, hogy csak én hallom úgy. Hát ennek annyi.
Incoming!
You heard Dr. Banner's testimony, Stark. The Avengers were dangerous. I wasn't the one who ordered you to be disowned.
All this for me? Aw, you shouldn't have.
Don't flatter yourself. I barely lifted a finger.
Oh, the kid's right? You're mind melding with robots now?
Hát igen, ez úgy sokra
In a
nem.
battle you don't fully understand.
I chose my side 5 years ago. You showed up and forced
No.
my hand.
Give me the girl, and you and Banner can do whatever you want.
Forget it.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh, skill az fejem ment.
Don't look directly at the me, kid!
Nice.
You need to listen to logic and reason.
Why start now?
Aj, aj.
Wait! No! Stuff was in there.
How you feeling?
I've never felt better.
Your synthetics were useless. If you'd let
Oh,
me deal with the
Abomination
Hulk
Miguel.
earlier, the archive would still be standing.
Watch your words.
You no longer make the rules. He does.
When I was young, I found an orphaned wolf cub in the forest behind our farm.
What?
Dad said it was too dangerous. He told me to get rid of it. I fed that cub. I named him. I watched him play with my beloved dog, Darwin.
You're wasting my time.
I felt if I could instill rules, the proper boundaries, I could harness the raw power of that beast.
Have you done rambling?
A few months later, while hunting, the adolescent cub turned on me, snarling, frothing at the mouth. Darwin bought me a few precious moments to call for help. My dad shot the wolf, but it was too late. Darwin had been torn to pieces.
George. We need him.
I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. Leave. Please.
Jarvis! You haven't aged a day.
Welcome Mr. Stark.
Missed you, buddy. You flying free?
In full working order.
Give me the worst of it.
The Chimera is running on secondary power. Major hull damage is also detected. Engines are offline. Climate...
So it's bad.
That is an accurate assessment.
Okay, we gotta get this bird airborne.
Excuse me?
AIM knows it's here, so it needs to not be here when they get here.
What?
All right.
Jós.
While we work on cleanup, you mind taking a look at something for me?
Certainly, sir.
See what you can do about decrypting this file.
At once.
Így van.
Gotta see why the turbines won't activate. Better check out the initiator cores in the hangar. Do I want to know what's going on here?
Hey, Tony. Just lending my, technical knowledge to Bruce here.
Well, I can see I have my work cut out for me.
Not helping.
Bill Sheldon reporting live from
Valami van.
where in rural Utah? Ah, the old commissary.
Jó, jó.
I'm on live. Following AIM's emergency public warning today. Wait, wasn't this working before? Okay, Jarvis. Time me.
1.04 seconds, sir.
Huh. Guess I'm a bit rusty. Jarvis, pop question. Where do we keep the spark plugs?
The initiator cores can be found in the far corner of the lower deck, sir.
Correctamundo.
Do I win a prize now, sir?
You win the biggest prize of all, my affection.
Egy első hangzásra aztán eltévedek, mintha ugyanazt szinkronizálnám, mint a Rivals-be Mordite. Lehet, csak én hallom bele.
Oh yeah, that looks perfectly up to safety standards. I think I found the problem.
Aha.
I just...
Hiányzik pár fuse.
Oh! It's definitely the initiator cores. Wait, don't the bigger aimbots use similar cores? If we could get a hold of one, I could get this old bird in the air in no time.
Indeed, sir. But someone would need to procure said initiator cores.
Yeah, I barely have a suit. Maybe I could cobble something together.
I'll search inventory for leftover pieces of armor.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, Tony, I'm still working on the door, but can you check on Kamala? I think she may have turned off her comms.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, this whole thing, it's probably a tough adjustment.
You got it.
Volt Kamalának a szobája.
Second floor of the old crew quarters, right? Jarvis, can you see if she's even up there?
Sir, there are no surveillance systems in the private quarters.
Whose terrible hippie idea was that?
Yours, sir.
Right.
Ja? Ott van a neve, oké.
Whoa.
Hey!
Ja,
You should have knocked.
a Ruciát próbálgatja, ami a klasszik.
Jarvis,
És
help
hát
me
a
out here.
játékbeli
It appears the
klasszik.
locking mechanisms on some of the Chimera's crew quarters have not been enabled.
There you have it. I will fix that.
Please do.
I'm gonna meet up on the command deck about 10 minutes. You should come.
I know, they look ridiculous.
Yeah, of course you do.
Man.
No. We all do. It's part of the job. Have you seen Thor's outfit? Flowing robes, Vegas shoulder pads. Yeah, pretty ridiculous. I am digging this.
Oh, it's a burkini. My mom bought it for me. Muslim ladies like to wear it for sports and stuff.
It's great.
All right, I'm just gonna change.
Wait. The outfit is all about attitude. You gotta wear it like you mean it. Show me what you got. Come on, you can do better than that. Yeah, now we're talking. All right.
Nice.
You know what? Maybe I can help you with some upgrades for that. Gear's already spinning.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, and if Bruce says anything, just remind him that all he wears are super stretchy shorts.
Bruce, the kid's fine. She's tough. Kind of like her. And she laughs at my jokes.
Ott is van DIY
She grows on you. Hey, meet me at the tech lab. I've almost got this door fixed.
Sir, in case you were wondering, your old room is still intact.
Still can't believe they found this thing. Miss you, buddy.
Yep. Meg hát nyilván akkor ma felrakjuk a favoritot. Majd vassurci lesz rajta. Ez sima első bosszúállókos. Endgame-es civilwar-os. Ez a saját filmes. Ja, ez az Endgame-es. Az Infinity War-os kell nekem. Az. Ma majd rákerül ismét.
You're still working on this door, huh? Well, I just need to remove the entire junction box and reconnect
Ah! Great job, buddy. See? Wasn't so hard.
Jó reggel, Zsolamizu is. Vagy aludtál.
Home sweet home. All right, if we're gonna get anywhere, we'll need to establish an alternate power source. Chimera was built for Terrigen, but I can convert it to run on something a little less explodey.
I'm scanning the region for sources, but it'll take some time to identify potential initiator core heat signatures.
Well, in the meantime, I need a new suit. Where can I find parts to repair the fabrication unit?
I've located a good salvage spot and have sent the coordinates to the war table. When you're ready.
War table, got it. Fix the fabrication unit, get a shiny new
Azt
suit,
hiszem, hogy pont Zsola.
get this bird off the ground.
Lehet csak én hallom bele. Vagy tényleg így van. De minthogyha a voice sector ugyanaz lenne Rivals-ben Mordájnak, mint itt Vasembernek. És eléggé ugyanolyan a hangzású. Fekete 4-kor. És te bro, miért rakod rá ezt a rucit, mikor én már ráraktam ezt? Te mi superior vasember is? Ja. Kérem vissza az endgame-eset. Nem, az Infinity... mi? Az Infinity War-osat, azért mondom. Később Zsola.
All right, first up. No way I'm gonna be any help fixing up the Chimera without my own upgrade. Jarvis, what do you got for me?
AIM is moving an experimental dropship, which could be appropriated for parts to repair the fabrication machine. Unfortunately, it's extremely well guarded.
But AIM's local defenses are designed around a large-scale air assault. If I fly in alone, using the canyon for cover, I should be able to slip through and jack the dropship.
It's risky, but I don't see an alternative at this point.
I'll upload the dropship's last known location to your HUD. The canyon walls
Akartam mondani, hogy kamanán vissza akarom változtatni a ruhát, de akkor így jó.
I suggest you work quickly.
Well, not exactly rocking a state-of-the-art suit, but it should get me there in one piece. 2, max.
Nice.
We need to move fast. Updating your HUD. AIM appears aware of our intrusion.
How about we call this a surprise visit? Intrusion makes it sound like we're the bad guys.
Noted, sir. Acquisition trip it is. I'm not sure how long our quarry will remain at its location.
I hear you. We should hurry. How much firepower does AIM have down here?
Rather a lot, it would seem.
And how much was actually sold to Stark Industries after A-Day?
It's impossible to say at this stage. Possibly rather a lot.
Karma is not my friend. Soon cool great.
Isn't calling it...
Ah, that's funny. Make the AI sassy, I said. It'll be fun, I said.
Okej, så att
That elevator goes to the landing pad we need.
Gotcha. Look at all this. Which nation state is AIM planning to go to war with?
Those munitions also appear similar to your designs.
Thanks, you guys. Sort of want to blow them up.
Ok. Legyen úgy.
That elevator goes to the landing pad we need.
Gotcha. Look at all this. Which nation state is AIM planning to go to war with?
Those munitions also appear similar to your designs.
Makes the guys sort of want to blow them up.
No. Na gyere ide.
Access the elevator.
Nice. Nagyon jól áthozták a ruhákat a filmből, Zseni.
Let's get the dropship and get gone, before AIM brings the big guns. Literally.
I quite agree, sir. It's safe to say Dr. Tarleton would relish...
Viszont utólag kapták meg ezt, hogy nincs rajta sisak. Ja, itt is a nyári skin. Zseniális.
A chance to dance on your grave.
Thanks, Jarvis. Now I'm stuck with a mental image of George doing the robot on my headstone.
Apologies, sir. If I'm correct, the dropship should be just up ahead.
Well, this place looks... Oh, where the hell is my dropship?
Scanning. The dropship was moved to a more secure location ahead. We can't get there before it takes off.
We can if we overcharge the suit by 300% and take the direct route.
Sir, you might literally explode, and that canyon is treacherous.
Sure, but I feel the need for speed. Do it, Goose, and play something fast. Well, this place looks homey. Whoa!
Your suit won't last forever.
This suit's all I've got left after George burned Golden Acres to the ground. I'm not losing it.
making weird noises.
Unsurprising. You just lost an acoustic dampening circuit. All systems are red. Keep going, sir.
Fasza.
Jarvis, this is my shot to make up for A-Day, help the kid, and, if I'm honest, stick it to Georgie boy. You're damn right I'll keep going.
Watch out. Their artillery's targeting you. Incoming.
On it!
Dropship shield.
Use all the juice left in the suit to get an EMP burst ready for me to trigger. Made it. Jarvis.
Nice.
Yes, sir. I've scanned the dropship and it contains the needed parts to repair the Chimera's fabrication machine.
Excellent. Let's check in on the kids and head home. Bruce, Kamala, you read me?
Loud and clear. Bruce is in the harm room pretending to be,
I don't even want to know.
So, any luck out there?
Success. We'll all be in new threads soon. The fabrication machine should be back online in no time.
Great. Can't wait to make Bruce a new pair of yoga pants.
Azt nem is néztem. Vasember 3-as ruci is benn van? Ah, benn van. Jó. Kíváncsi voltam. Akkor az összes filmes ruciát behozták. Ja, közben betölt, oké.
Well, that was fun. Gotta say, it's nice to be back in the saddle.
Yes, sir. You haven't missed a beat.
Ah, glad to see that flattery upgrade kicked in. Now, let's take a peek at our loot. Ah, we hit the jackpot, buddy. This is exactly what I need to fix the fabrication machine.
Glad to hear it. Especially as your current suit is now... How would you
Amúgy az
put it?
volt.
Kaput.
Amikor még nem volt ez a Definitive Edition, meg nem adták potom pénzért. Akkor konkrétan gondolom, tehát ezeket mind külön, semmi undorító volt. Oké, bejöttek ezek a ruhák a filmekből is, hogy ezek exotic outfitek, tehát a legdrágábbak voltak. Majd kiadtak egy olyan verziót, nem mindegyikhez, amikor nincs rajta sisak. És akkor azt is külön vedd meg. Tehát ja.
These are all based on my designs.
Some are near exact.
Ami tetszik, amúgy itt van az izé is. Az endgame-es, ahol nincs isak, és sérült is itt, aha. És ott vannak a végtelen kövek a kezén ugyanúgy. És ez meg még később került be. Ha jól emlékszek.
Taking advantage of the Stark tech acquisition. I was kind of hoping they just sit on the assets.
Nem is tudom. Én szerintem, amikor Xbox-ra megjelent, akkor volt, hogy vettem egy skint, ami talán Thorra volt? Nem emlékszem pontosan. Aztán ment is rá a refund, így hogy... Ja, minden skin ingyen kvázi. Ugyanaz, mint Mordai? Akkor jól hallottam. Nem voltam benne biztos. Ja. Az ikonikus, és ez a játékbeli verzió, ami amúgy fasza. És ezt néztem, ez Funkóba, ez ugyanúgy jól néz ki. Adom, hogy megvan az a kis retro, ilyen ténylegesen first design.
Take my picture.
Well done, sir.
A faszán
Finally
néz ki.
feeling like my old self.
Along with the fabrication machine, I've managed to...
Ja, most Kamala is visszakapta az izét, a saját ruháját, amit összerakott, mert a sztori szerint ott tartunk. Itt nincs ilyen klasszik. De mi haj az rá, de mégse. Hát ez is ahhoz hasonló. Oh, van mindenféle. Iron Knight. Ja, erre gondoltam. Meg a Prime-os ruci is. Ez is. Azért újjá lehet válogatni, és mindenki kedve szerint azt. Zseni. Kérem vissza az Infinity War-osat, sajnálom.
Power to various other areas, including the inventory vault. I'm detecting some old equipment in your vault, sir. Should I incinerate it?
What? No. That's not trash, Jarvis. It's my stuff. I'll go take a look.
As you wish.
Jó irányban megyek egyáltalán? Ja. Inventory storage.
See? Not trash.
Indeed.
Ja, itt van, amit
I'm sure
Kamalánál
you'll use this to
üzéltem.
store many more treasures. Sir, representatives from our friends at S.H.I.E.L.D. are now aboard the Chimera. Agent Morales is in the command nest. She may be able to help with the parts needed for the ship.
Great. Look forward to meeting her.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey there. I was told S.H.I.E.L.D. was in the house.
I'm Agent Elisande Morales. I'll be your point of contact for S.H.I.E.L.D.
Morales.
day to day. If you ever have any spare cycles, come see me.
Olyan köze van Mileshoz?
There's plenty
Vagy
that
csak ugyanaz a vezeték?
Very nice to meet you, Morales. I need to find some parts to get this old girl in the air. Maybe I can kill two birds with one stone? Help out my old S.H.I.E.L.D. pals while I'm at it?
I'm short-handed as it is. Someone like you helping out would be amazing.
És emlékeztem, hogy vannak ilyenek. Mindegyiket accept. Hogy a vihar van-e.
Yes, you gave us an upper hand against AIM.
Sir, a new S.H.I.E.L.D. representative has joined us and is now stationed in the Commons area.
Torém amúgy meg... A Tor, mintha azt nem ugyanaz lenne, tehát itt is, meg ott is. De majd ha feltűnik, akkor úgyis lehet hallani újra a hangját.
See what 3 hours of sleep does to a person? You get all these looks.
Ó, itt lehet tőle vásárolni, nagyon jó. Nameplate-et, emótokat. Kamalára, nézzük meg csak Kamalára ezt a... Hát én... Oké. Tehát, hogy miért vennéd meg ezt? Oké. Ott maradnak.
Agent Levine is on the hangar deck. If you have a moment, he can likely assist in further upgrades of your equipment.
Reménye lesz a lila? Mindegy. És miért nem jelöli a fővízét, hogy már... Na mindegy. Ja, most Kamalán az ő által alkotott ruci van.
How do I look, kid? Presentable? No. Charming?
You cleaned up nice. Smell a lot better too.
Ouch. I was hoping for a better first impression.
Oh no, it was pretty good. You earned a lot of points with that scrappy suit stunt.
This place is starting to really come to life again, eh?
You fishing for a compliment?
No, never. Just making an observation.
Fine. Thanks for helping to things up, Tony.
See, that wasn't so hard, was it?
Hangert mondtak? Tovább. Így hülye vagyok. Oké, itt lesz, oké. Lent, mit nem látok? Mégis. Vakon vagyok. Játék. Most eltűnt a jelölés. Össze-vissza vagar az a játék, ne tudd meg is hol a stream elején. Ez az, hogy én sem, mert volt ilyen fehér fény, most már az sincs. Sárga vagy mi. Egyszerűen nem igaz.
You ever want to try a new look? Now's the time.
Hát ha. A küldetésnek főjelene jeleznie kellene. Tehát így kéne jeleznie. Hogy hova. És megint hülye vagyok. Most érdekes módon jó. És oda kell menjek. Ajjaj. Mindegy, összeállt a dolog. Tehát hogyha mindenképp jeleznie kellett volna, de nem.
Hey there, ho there. You want to see what I've been cooking up? Always a pleasure. Made that myself. Hope it works out for you. Oh gosh, if it doesn't, you let me know.
Ja, még le van lokkolva. Az, na mindegy.
Sir, my heat signature's scans have detected 2 potential sources of initiator cores.
Potential. Why potential?
Unfortunately, due to AIM security systems, determining the actual source of the heat signatures at this range is impossible.
Another word I don't like. Okay, then we double our chances. Bruce, Kamala, meet me at the war table.
We're on our way.
Ez legalább nem kell mutassa, hogy merre, mert tudom, hogy ez merre van.
All right, guys, we've got work to do.
Nice suit.
Köszi.
Touché.
How can we help?
Jarvis has found a couple heat signatures that might be concentrations of initiator cores, but they're in completely separate locations. Since time is of the essence, we're going to need to hit both locations simultaneously. Bruce, you and Kamala need to search the outskirts of the Badlands while I investigate a city on the eastern seaboard. Hopefully one of these spots yield us those initiator cores.
You got it.
Jarvis, how much longer?
Approaching the location shortly, sir.
Great. We've got to find those initiator cores and get back to fixing. It's only a matter of time before AIM pinpoints the Chimera's location, and we need our base of operations up and running. Oh, I look so good in this suit.
Dashing, sir.
You are right. Whoa, 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 whoa. Where is everyone?
Seems AIM has evacuated the city due to heavy inhuman activity.
Sounds like an excuse to experiment on dangerous technology. Maybe your heat signature hunch was right. A giant stash of initiator cores could power their experiment.
The facility is heavily guarded. Expect resistance upon your arrival.
You mean they won't be happy to see me? Shock. This place is a ghost town. Jarvis, how far is the facility?
A few meters up ahead, sir.
Hover scout platforms. Is there anything AIM didn't steal from me?
Jó reggelt, el a Mizu is, hogy vagy?
Anyone else nearby? Civilians?
Evacuation began this morning.
Szuper. Vigyázz magadra. Öj! Na, nem figyelek megint.
Get me in range of the top-up access junction for long enough, and I'll get to see. Keep AIM's unit out of range, or the hack may be disrupted. Making progress. Stay in range of the junction and keep AIM away.
Hoppa. Arra is céloznak.
Through the first firewall.
Úgy egész jól, köszi. Sikerült kialudni magam. Jó. Hozom el is a nagy fiút.
I'm nearly there.
Na, lassan kinyitjuk.
Finally!
So now that I've reached the AIM security systems, my improved readings of the heat signatures suggest that this may in fact be a much larger power source.
So, not initiator cores?
It's difficult to say, but our detected intrusion has caused AIM to initiate a self-destruct sequence. And based on the size of the heat signature...
Let me guess, it could level a few blocks?
What's that?
That is correct, sir.
Well, AIM's not destroying another city on my watch.
If doesn't... Ah. Nice.
Okay, let's see what all the fuss is about, shall we?
You can assume it will be well protected.
No welcome banners. Got it.
Aha. Nem tudom, jó vagy rossz értelemben. De akkor örülök, ha bármiféle pozitív.
Whatever's behind these doors, AIM's willing to destroy everything to hide it. Oh no. Not good, not good at all. This is my arc reactor technology, but supersized. This could level cities. What is AIM thinking? Oh. Hello there, handsome.
Van
the
híró
reactors are becoming increasingly unstable. You must shut it down.
Taking out those amplifiers are the only way to shut it down.
Jó, tudom csizom. Úgyis. Most ide jött? Jó.
Several more cores to go, sir.
Good job one of these days. We've not appreciated.
De igen, hát ezzel nem lehet repülni. Jó, oké. Ezt a mission még fixen lenyomom, úgyis. Ó, még egy nagy fiú. Oké, sokas ellen. 2 nagy fiú. Jó reggelt, Viktor Mizu is megy után. Ide, odafigyelj az útra, Ella! Jaj. Ah. Jó, megvan.
Congratulations, sir. You've successfully destroyed the arc reactor.
Well, that's not something I ever expected to hear you say. Let's salvage what we can and get out of here.
Are you all right?
Yeah. Yeah, just, you know, I made it for all the right reasons. That's what I told myself. Look at what happened. The Terrigen reactor, A-Day. Now this. I can't control what other people do with my tech, but I can't pretend it's out of my hands anymore.
I'm proud of you, sir.
Aww.
Yeah. Proud of me too.
Okay, typikus Tony.
Speaking of trouble, Bruce, Kamala, any luck with those initiator cores?
Working on it.
Oké, viszont Kamala, létszi, engedd, hogy a Rusziát megváltoztassuk.
Tony, we've been searching for
Nem tudom megváltoztatni.
Okay, kids.
Ah!
Counting on you finding this second heat signature. Hopefully it yields us a bounty of initiator cores.
Akkor marad rajta az a
It
Ruci.
won't be long till AIM pinpoints the location of the Chimera. And without a base of operations, yeah, well, we won't have much of a chance. So,
Én is jó,
don't
kis
let me
vagy.
down.
Minden
And
szupi.
good luck.
That's...
Még itt tudok változtatni rajta, nem tudom miért aggódtam. Vissza a sorisra. Itt a torgos sap is. Meg sőt, ez full toros outfit amúgy. Nem csak torgos sapi van rajta, még a felső is ilyen toros. Ó, ez a Future Guardian-es amúgy jól néz ki. Jó reggel, Joshi Mizu is. Hogy vagy? Most már remélem többet leszel a streamen. A telep is úgy itt hagytál minket. Mi az a Supernatural Avenger? Mi az Isten? Köszi Sola, ügyesen.
Oh, wait. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I can't let Mr. Stark down. Jarvis, where should I start?
The second heat signature has a few scattered spots surrounding a rather large center, suggesting a significant concentration of potential initiator cores. It must be stored in a single location. A structure, perhaps.
Got it.
Shock butt 2. Got eyes on anything?
All clear here.
Azaz.
Jarvis?
Yes, Miss Khan.
Is it me, or is the Hulk not his bright green self?
It appears Dr. Banner has been struggling with the passing of our beloved captain, Miss Khan. From his recorded memos, he returned to Chimera determined to solve the events of A-Day,
Megemlítettem.
but instead grew more frustrated with his perceived failure.
This feels
Nem tudom, amúgy milyen adás? Stream adás? Honnan? Azaz.
Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie teams, go dark for now. Stay off this channel unless you find the targets.
Majdnem este 11, az igen. Elég jól éreztek magatokat, jó van, jó van. Pizza.
Found a tech stash in section 12. Junking it.
You're approaching more AIM equipment.
Hopefully the kind we need.
Nem így akartam. Jups. Nem új játék. 2020-as azt hiszem.
Anyone feel the ground shaking?
They burnt out the core. They're trying to destroy as many as possible.
Then we must hurry.
Anyone feel the ground shaking? Is that what I think it is? Target spotted.
That's the Hulk! We need backup out here!
I don't like the look of these guys. They aren't the normal AIM.
Miss Khan, I believe they may be part of a group who call themselves the Watch. A radical anti-superhero organization.
Wait, értesítés. Megjött a... Oké, az októberi, vagyis a spooktóberi egyik cucca megjött, már idő előtt. Úgy az, hogy elsőre érkezik, és akkor pont jó lenne a streamre, de már előbb ideért. Nice. Hát én szeretem a szuperhősöket, szóval... Én szuperhős buzi vagyok, így ez a játék is nekem betalált. Hack. Nem kell nekem sok. Jó. Kifeküdt. €80 az új Silent Hill, hát durca, igen. Silent Hill F. Csak részleteket láttam, de ja, hozzá kötelező Silent Hill dolgot. De nem tudom, én nem venném rá magam. Mert nekem a Silent Hill 2 remake is egy ilyen csalódás volt, nekem nagyon uncsi volt, de lehet, hogy csak én vagyok így ezzel. De másnak meg az egyik legjobb Silent Hill játék lett, szóval.
Where are all the other Inhumans? Why aren't they fighting back?
Nem baj, most úgyis októberben lesz tolva a horror game, ugye lesz újra a DPD-zés. Still Wakes the Deep-nek a DLC-t kijátszom. The Last of Us Part 1-t is kijátszom. Meg hát ami még érkezik. Szerintem lesz repózás is, World War Z is. Majd összeszedgetem a horror gameszkókat.
I know what that feels like.
OD? OD az most így nem tudom micsoda.
These powers are a part of us. And all I do know, it's a lot better if you just embrace that. Or something like that.
My dad used to say the same thing.
Well, he's a...
Megküldted DC-re? Hova küldted? Majd rálesek.
The best.
You should head back to the Chimera. Okay.
Stay where you are.
Come,
A kid and an old guy. All right. Dr. Pym will see you now.
Hank Pym?
Okés.
Hank? Bruce? What are you doing out here?
I could ask you the same thing.
Oh, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Kamala, this is...
Hank Pym.
Dr. Hank Pym.
Ant-Man?
That was another life. Follow me.
Igen, itt
So this is the
itt a hangja, az a hangja, aki elsőnek volt, tehát ő Hank. Itt ebben a verzióban, világban. Csak itt már nem hangja. Tehát úgy hangja, itt már nem az.
Thank you very much.
What is this place?
We call it the Anthill.
Ooh.
Not my idea. I think it was one of our anonymous hackers, Tiny Dancer.
Tehát nekik is Tiny Dancer. Öreg.
Hát
ha emlékszel a hangya filmekre, voltak eredetileg volt hangya Hank. Na itt igazándiból, itt most ő Hank, de itt nem öreg.
We've got lots to catch up on.
This place is more than I ever imagined.
Nem tudom mennyire vannak meg hangyafilmek.
You got a sec?
You're the portal guy.
That would be me. Theo, the portal guy, at your service.
I'm Kamala. Your powers are awesome.
Oh, thanks. But you should talk to Sarah. She's up ahead next to the big surveillance screen and is dying to meet you.
Me? Okay.
Welcome to the Anthill, our little home of misfits.
Nice. Én sajnos tudom magamról, hogy én jobban ilyen... Én jobban bele vagyok ezekbe zúgva, így a szuperhősös izékbe, meg jobban megmarad nekem, szóval meg tudok érteni.
I've got cameras in a bunch of those dead mechs you passed in the desert. It was pretty fun watching you kick Watchdog butt.
Oh, thanks.
I'm Sarah Garza, and the whispers about you are already fierce.
Good whispers?
Hell yeah, we want you on our team. You ever have spare cycles? I've got plenty that needs doing. Okay, here's what I need.
Persze, itt is elfogadom az összeset, köszönöm.
You have no idea how much this is gonna help the resistance. Could you check out that
Persze,
chest
amikor játszottam
behind
is,
you?
szerintem
Just
sose
got a
csináltam
fancy
ezeket a
new
déli
shipment in and haven't
küldiket,
had time
mert
to ogle
minek.
it yet. Sure
Oké,
thing.
nyilván kapok belőle anyagot, de...
I don't know what this is, but I bet Sarah will be excited about it.
I need a favor. Exactly what the doctor ordered. Thanks a bunch.
No problem. Happy to help.
Want to know a secret? The robots around here are all Pim's pet projects. We've got the first Mark I hanging out in the gear shack next to the stairs. Literally. He's hard to miss.
Okay. Guess I can go take a look.
Akkor megnézzük a robotot. Ja, ő itt. Ez ilyen émes robot átalakítva?
Sorry. I'm staring. Sorry.
I have no feelings regarding your ocular direction. Every trace of bypass.
Igen. Hát, én is szeretem a horrort, csak te több horrort láttál valószínűleg, mint én.
My programming deemed it inefficient to be attached to such redundancies. I only receive joy through mutual.
De majd pótolgatom. Meg én inkább a retro horror, vagyok a slasheröket. Jobban preferálom. Meg az olyat, ami tud így paráztatni, talán az a jó szó. Tehát nekem sokkal jobban fekszik az a fajta horror, ami paráztat, és nem az van, hogy jumpscare és akkor hú.
Excellent selection. Thank you. An exchange has occurred. I am pleased.
Ezek mindent is.
What is mine is now.
Jó, úgy van, fel leszünk. Itt lehet lapozni is... Ja, oké. Nekem is a kampók között egyáltalán nem, se az újat, se a régit. Tudom, mit tettél, hogy tavaly nyáron egyik részét se láttam, de már kikölcsönöztem. Illetve kikölcsönöztem mind a 9 Texas láncfű részes filmet, mert én talán még a legelsőt láttam annó, de akkor még ovis voltam, tehát semmi nem maradt meg belőle.
It's me. Drop by the lab. I'll hook you up with some goodies. I'm over here. You want to chat? My hero. Dang, look at you. I am liking the whole vibe. I'm Maddie, resident biogenius. Don't tell Pim I said that. Or Banner.
Secret safe with me. You called me to your office?
Yes, though I am not an inhuman, I am a purveyor of goodies, gear, and gadgets. If you need anything to make you faster, stronger, or stretchier,
Még valamit akartam mondani, előtt nem eszembe.
What do you get out of it?
Being smarter than everybody else.
Valami horrorfilmről nem tudom, hogy azt láttad, de nem jut eszembe az a címe.
I've already got some prototypes. Take a look. My hero.
A viasztesteket, nem tudom, azt láttad-e?
Oh, that makes way more sense than my guess.
Azt mondja, hogy eléggé alulértékelt horror, azt mondjuk tök jó.
I'm in awe. I might be drooling.
Tudom, mit tett
Can I help you with any of this stuff?
Maradt meg. Annak kerültek valakit? Igen, sejtem, mire gondolsz.
Check out the war table. He'll fill you in.
War table it is.
Igazándiból kétszer is elütnek valakit, és mindkettőször ugyanabból az okból nem figyelt a sofőr. Ugye az a legelején, amikor a Ghostface öli meg a saját lányukat, ott is nem figyelt a sofőr. Meg van, amikor egy csövit ütnek el, és ott is ugyanabból az okból nem figyelt a sofőr. Ha belegondolsz. Hello there. Jaj, akkor már kirabolták. Pont egy... Nem tudom, nem akarok esőzni, szerintem egy 2 hónapja? 2 hónapja megnéztem újra az összeset.
Okay. Now that we've got some muscle on our side, I think we should hit one of AIM's testing labs. We know they've been experimenting on humans in small rural communities. I'd like to get my hands on one.
Amikor Snapon volt és itt voltak a Máték, akkor megnéztük a hátborzongat lakot. Ezt nem tudom, ismered el.
Olympia Archive? Impressive. We wondered who was responsible for taking that place down.
Thanks. We didn't get out with a lot of information, but now maybe we can find out more.
Én választhatok? Én hálkozni szeretnék, köszönöm játék. Amikor tudom, jó, de hát ez ilyen, ez is ilyen paródia. A hátborzongatlak. Az mit is parodizál ki? Nem jut eszembe a... Pintergest? Nem tudom, hogy ez a... Nem jut eszembe. A kopogós szellemes filmet. Vagy nem is, a... Mondjad már. Amikor ilyen éjjeli kamerás lerakják, meg minden... Nem jut eszembe a neve.
Welcome to Venture Ridge, Wyoming. This was one of AIM's go-to holding sites for Inhumans before the prison was built.
Vagy nem tudom már mi az Isten, nem teszem be, esküszöm. Paranormal Activity?
They won't take kindly to your presence. If any luck, we'll be able to capture intel that could shed some light on what
Igen, na, azt parodizálja ki, a hátborzongatlak, az azt parodizálja ki, lényegében. És ugyanúgy hát ez a feketes testvérpár, akinek a fejéből kipattant. Láttad a filmet? Akkor jó. Azért azt néztük meg a srácokkal, amikor itt voltak szóval pozitív. Máték kiégtek. És meg az Zsola is. Én emlékeztem rá, hogy agyfasz, de nem, hogy ennyire. Azt nem itt kell másik része, viszont azt én sem láttam.
AIM keeps their data well guarded. We haven't been able to...
Annabelle van a másik rész? Nice. Legalább tudok miből kiindulni, mert az Annabelle első részét láttam. Viszont nekem megmarad egy rossz mozis élménynek, mikor az akkori párommal megnéztük az Apácát a moziba, és úgy voltunk vele a film felé, hogy mindketten ki akarunk menni, de ki volt fizetve, hogy ezért nem mentünk. A részemről elég gyengén sikerült, de ez az én véleményem.
You're safe now.
Maga a karakter jó, meg kell olyan par, de a film az úgy valahogy nem úgy állt össze.
So you've been building the resistance in secret all these years?
Not intentionally. At least not in the beginning. A lot of us were captured by AIM early on. After we realized nobody was coming for us, we broke out and started making our own plans.
Okés áll. Majd legyom ezt a mission.
Let's do this!
AIM has initiated emergency procedure.
Nem sokáig bírta, neki vágtam az embert, azt a deszkó. Voltam, de nem tudom. Szerintem elég gyenge volt, meg nem is nevezném eventnek. Az elején a cinematic jó volt, azt aláírom. Ezt jól megcsinálták, meg tetszett, hogy felvettük és sokat bementünk. De utána így kvázi ilyen táncolgatós, ilyen semmi lényegében. Legalábbis nekem nem tetszett. Már láttam jobb eventet, azért vagyok ilyen kritikus. Tehát tudom, hogy tudnak jobbat. És ők se csináltak jobbat.
You'll need to take out the security node. That did not go as planned. If you destroy the 2 transformers on the upper level, elevator doors should open.
Istenek el Zsozsi, tetszett? Tudál menni rá? Nekem a Kidlerős jobban tetszett. Ott interaktív volt, hogy vezetett a sztori, meg minden, meg az ténylegesen az egy ilyen végigmentél a mappon, itt meg akkor ez egy lobbiba vagy és mész, amerre akarsz. Mondom, ez az én véleményem, nekem nem tetszett. Ilyen ezzel ellen most sose értünk semmibe se egyet, az feltünk. Az eddigek közül, amiket láttam, nekem a remixes koncert nagyon jó volt. Juice WRLD, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, az zseni volt. Ice Spice, tehát azt tényleg, azt top. Nekem is azt szerintem az egyik favorit. Meg mondjuk az is tök jó event volt, amikor bemutatták az új játékmódokat. Az is kreatív volt. Tehát azért mondom, hogy tudnak szerintem ennél jobb eventeket. Meg nekem most ez a season is így annyira nem. Nekem ez a season úgy annyira nem fekszik, az elején még talán. Remélem, hogy a Fortnite mézre alkotnak valamit. Akkor csak a remixbe csatlakoztál? Akkor nem régóta játszol. Nincs egy éve, jaj. Jó, és hát a remix is az kvázi, de lehet, hogy már mondták a srácok, meg nem akarok itt csak jeppelni neked. Ugye az a remixes dolog, amit te láttál, az a régi Chapter 2-nek az ilyen egyvelege, vagy nem tudom minek mondjam. Tehát újrázása.
According to Tarleton, anyone with powers is a threat. They made sure I'll never use mine again. Altered my physiology, so if I change size, I'll die.
I'm so sorry.
Ja, amúgy ez tényleg jó volt. Természet egyik se veri. Érthető. Én csak visszajátszás a videóban láttam a Travis-es, de az alapján tényleg amúgy faszának tűnhetett. azért most a Fortnite mézre valószínűleg oda teszik magukat. Ez a Huntrix-el is, Huntrix-el, Cup of Demon Hunters és olyan kollaboráció, hogy nem csak skinek. Amúgy ki lehet csak a 3 choice-it kapjuk meg skinbe. Meg akkor még bejönnek a fegyverek is mellé, minden. Akit érdekel, leak szobába bedobtam magamnál, a Zoe skin ki van leakelve. Maga a szinkron színész rakta ki, hogy néz ki a skinje. Hogy fog kinézni. A Zoe az olyan ki van rakva. Jó, nyomott Tony. Te is úgy látod, Zsozsi, amúgy bármennyire is szeretem a Fortit, mert tényleg hogy az a main game-em, sajnos én is úgy látom, hogy most ilyen kicsit light menet van, bármennyire is fáj kimondani. Tehát én is most jobban élem jelenleg a Marvel Rivals-t is. Jó reggelt, kis Gomizú is, hogy aludtál. És Zsozsi, te még szoktál valamit nyomni Fortin kívül? Lehet, hogy mesélted, csak nem rémlik.
I don't know if we can, but I could attempt to divert the transport from its intended destination.
Excellent idea. See if you can reprogram its destination to the anthill.
Helyes.
Looks like we made it just in time. Get close to those terminals so I can infiltrate their network.
Az a szezon se egy játék, mert nem tudom.
The transport's navigation system. Be on guard. AIM will try to regain control of the terminal.
És most a Fortnite nézve reménykedek. Egyik leaker azt írta ki, de azt is megosztottam. Lehet, hogy már elsőjén elkezdődik, ami jó lenne. Átadobna az egésznek a hangulatán.
We just lost an access point. Return it to our control.
Jason is kap saját medált, de reménykedek, hogy valamit alkottuk így.
An AIM unit took back control of an access point.
Super Mario Need for Speed. Kipergetted már őket? Aha.
AIM has regained control of a terminal. Please deal with it. Control of an access point.
Itt van Wolfenstein, nyomod. Azt mindjárt dobok is egy faluvat. A streamered, akkor nem akarok lemaradni róla.
We just lost an access point. Return it to our control.
Nice.
Tell me you got it. Yes, sir. 0.4 seconds to spare. Transport should be arriving at the anthill within the hour.
Excellent work, everyone. Head back here and we'll begin digging through those AIM research samples.
Ott is van a követés. Csengésbe van nyomva. Nagyon jó.
That didn't go quite according to plan. We've got some valuable research samples, but AIM is far more powerful than I had anticipated.
And they've got so many of my people. We have to stop them.
Agreed, Kamala, but we need some time to regroup. When Tony gets here with the Chimera, we'll be in a much better position to go on the offensive.
Okay. But we can't wait too much longer.
Okay, head back to the anthill and we'll talk about next steps.
Pedig carrier nem tudok visszamenni, csak... Jó. A mély menü. Ja, teljesen érthető. Érthető. Jogos. Na jó van, srácok, lányok. Az itteni chat meghalt, nem tudom miért. Nem baj. Itt reggelre ennyi. Haladgattam picit. És akkor majd délután érkezek, nem tudom még mivel, majd megálmodom. Ami ez lesz kedv. Addig is jó, sziasztok, köszönöm szépen mindenkinek, aki itt volt.